Can you explain like this time of year as a coach, like how gratifying it is to get a couple days as we talked about just a 2-game week here for the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, this is the time when you need the rest because they've been going at it pretty steady. I mean, all through Christmas and January. So I mean, it's especially with another rest coming. This is why they do the outdoor practices. Is they do it now because it's more of a fun thing. It's not really uh, you're not going to see them doing too much work out there. Any outdoor practice I had because the fans are allowed in there, and it's more just to meet the fans and give them a break and give them a day too. So it's a good time to rest because it picks up an awful lot come next month once the Four Nations is done.
Yes, it does, Brucey. And, it's one of those things for me, obviously getting to see them skate outside is great, but it's that time of year, you know what I mean? We're starting to see trades and, you've been around the game for a long time. What do you take from this Rantanen trade? This was obviously a big one. And what the Leafs did, like, how do you think that situation was handled? They have a similar situation with Marner being a UFA here at the end of the year.
Yeah, you know what? I when it came upon my phone, and I said, "Oh, it must be another Rantanen." Who would have thought that Rantanen was getting traded? I thought maybe it was written wrong or something else. But I mean, you take Colorado's side, and they're saying, "Okay, listen, we've tried. We've asked them for their best offer. They gave it to us. We can't meet their demands." And so we have to make a move, and let's make the move now when we can indoctrinate somebody back into the organization and get them accustomed to the way we play rather than to wait to the trade deadline and shock them. Whereas if you look at what Miko said the other day, he said, I would have taken a definite drop in pay. So I don't know who's telling the truth or who's giving the discounts or whatever. But as the trade itself goes, like, I mean, I always look at who got the best player involved. And the best player, obviously, even for a short period of time, is Carolina. Now, Carolina wants to win a cup. So, I mean, obviously, they'd like to keep people for long term. But if they could keep the best player in the deal and keep them through this year and try to sign them, and they're going to have the money next year. I think it's good for them to do it. They haven't had too many real superstars. They got great players, there's no doubt, but a real superstar like Rantanen doesn't come along every day. But I think they got the better of the deal. Listen, Martin Nikash had a great start to the season. I mean, he's slowed down a little bit now and become who he was. And who he was a great skater and goal scorer, but never a really great playmaker. And this year he put it all together a little bit. But if you're got to get something in return, it's a pretty good return, but it's not Mikko Rantanen, that's for sure.
Put it this way, in Leafs Nation, anything that happens in the NHL, we try to frame it. What does this mean for the Leafs? So naturally, we talk about Mitch Marner. Put it this way: if it was the Leafs giving up Marner and getting Natchez and Jack Drury, how would you be feeling about that?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't like it, but that's me. I think Marner's a special player. I mean, you got to believe that. What is he, second in the league in assists right now, and fourth or fifth in points or something? I don't know. Maybe a little further down in points because he hasn't scored as much as those other guys. But at the same time, I think he's going to be asking for the 14 million or close to it. And can the Leafs afford to do that? I mean, they have to make the decision. I think that the Leafs are all in to try to win the cup every year, and if they do that, and then they probably want to keep him and gamble. But I got to believe that they've got a pretty good idea whether they can sign him or whether they can't sign him at this point. But I certainly would want him on my team. I think he's I mean, you got your great players in Toronto, but this guy kills every penalty. He's on every power play. He plays every important shift. Now they use him on the point on the power play. I mean, he's everything that the Leafs need, except maybe he doesn't fight. And I don't think they need a fighter. So I mean, to me, to keep him happy, and I don't think you're going to be able to make a trade in the league that's going to make you a better team if you trade Mitch Marner.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? You always talk about that giving up the best player, right, to what you're going to get in return. And now just viewing in the present, right? I guess this Leafs team in general, right? They've kind of been floundering a little bit as of late. And, in the last 19 outings this season, only having 2 goals in those games. Yes. And there's always that factor of like, they've gotten away from that run and gun offense, right? Which we see doesn't connect in the playoffs in Craig Berube style. Like, what do you take of this team right now? Is this just like, should this be worrisome that they're scoring less, in those 19 outings throughout the season? Or this is just Craig Berube setting the table for a better Leafs team come playoffs?
You know what Craig told me as far back as August. I had a one-on-one with him at a golf course, and he said we're going to score less, and he says we probably might get less points, but we will be better prepared for the playoffs. So I think they're going right along with what Craig has said, and they've played great defense at times. But again, I think when both of the goalies were healthy, they were also getting tremendous goaltending each and every night. So, I mean, I think they're going to be better prepared for the playoffs. Look at the Devils are playing the run and gun style, and they're struggling a little bit right now. And when it gets down to March and April, and it's 3-2 games and 2-1 games because everybody's more into it, I think you're going to be much better ready for the playoffs if you play this system rather than seeing soon as there's a potential turnover, 2 guys taken off, and maybe the turnover doesn't work and the puck ends up staying in your zone for a 5-on-3 a lot of the times, and that's what's happened to the Leafs in the past.
As much as you love doing these media gigs and stuff like that, I've been campaigning. I'm not sure if you know this. I've been campaigning for you to join the Leafs as a special advisor to try to take a look under the hood of that power play. I know you're watching this team, Gabby, on a nightly basis. What would you do if you had a chance to coach that Leafs power play? What would it look like?
Wow. I mean, I would definitely go back to when they were first overall. It's the same players, same personnel, see what they did on a consistent basis. I think the one of the things is everybody looks for Austin all the time on the power play, and when he was out those 11 games, the power play was pretty good. And when he comes back, and then everybody is looking for him. Nobody wants to be the shooter; they all want to be the setup man. But I think they've got, I mean, if they've got a great net presence, they've got a great tipper, whoever they want to put in there. They got guys on both sides that can, whether it's playing on the forehand or the one timer, whether it's Matthews or Nylander, who can shoot the puck as well as anybody. And I think in the past, their biggest struggle was they didn't have that Quinn Hughes on the point. They didn't have that kind of guy. And whether it was Rielly or I know OEL was that guy in Phoenix, but that was many, many moons ago. I mean, we tried him in a little bit in Vancouver, and it just isn't the same thing. So but they've got the 5 guys that can do it. But what I would do is I would break it into 2 units, quite frankly, and play them and play 2 different styles on both units. And whoever's going the best would get the start. And if you score in the first shift, you'd go the second shift. If you didn't, and then second guys come on, and you try to change it halfway and put some pressure on the defense, not knowing exactly what's going to happen all the time. And I think that it's pretty when you watch their power play, it's pretty stagnant as to what they do, and it's pretty easy to read right now.
Yeah, I think it is too, Bruce. And I know I'm sure you had done it before. I know when we would run 2 power play groups in practice where it was one puck, right? One play. And you get that internal competition going, I think is so important for hockey teams, right? And I think, again, I do agree with you forcing Austin Matthews all the time to get him going. And some other guys they need to get going. Obviously, Max Domi, he's got 42 games played this year, 3 goals. When you have a player like that, he's been around the league a long time. What are you doing to try to get a guy like that going? And what do you think the Leafs need to do here to try to get more out of Max?
Well, boy, it's certainly something that you want, especially if you want him in a top 9 role. I mean, no matter how we cut it, 3 goals is not enough. What he scored, he went that big drought, then he scored 3 goals in 3 games, I think, and then he's been in another drought. And I don't know exactly what it is. I think wing is a better position for him, quite frankly, than anything else, because I just don't think he was great as a center. I didn't have him, but I played against him a lot when I was in Anaheim and he was starting out in Arizona. But he really has, when you think about it, bounced around to an awful lot of teams in a short period of time. So everybody's seeing that there's a wart on him somehow. He looks great with the skating and he gets chances, but he just doesn't get the job done as far as I'm concerned. And I think we have to find somebody better at that position in the top 9 forward. And I think he'd be a really good energy guy. I don't know if he'd accept it as a fourth line guy come playoff time, but he's certainly getting enough ice time. There's not games when he gets 8 minutes and 7 minutes. He's always like whether it's a second unit power play, and which hasn't worked out, or the third line minutes, he's getting 13 to 15 minutes a night. So I mean, we need more from him. Simple as that. I don't care if Ty's his dad and he's an iconic Toronto guy, but I mean, if the Leafs are going to be successful, they need more out of this guy.
No doubt about that. The deadline is March 7th, and curious to sort of get your perspective as a head coach, what the head coach's role is this time of year, and if you're Craig Berube, what's on your wish list for Brad Treliving right now?
Well, I mean, if I'm Craig Berube, the first thing I want is communication with Brad. I hope they sit down and they talk about it, and all the coach can do. And the coach, no, I don't care what anybody says. The coach knows the players and their personalities better than anybody. He's in the room every single day. The GMs aren't in the room, or they're watching it from above. They don't. They know how good a player is. They're all smart hockey men, but I mean, it's the coach knows the players. He's in the room before practice. He's usually in the room after practice. He has the individual meetings with the players, and I'm hoping that Berube and Brad are having great conversations where they say, and all Brad can or Craig can say is, listen, you know what? I think we could be really good if we get this kind of individual. And then you let the GM do the job. I mean, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it wouldn't work. I mean, in my history, when we were in Washington, when we got Sergei, I asked for a second line center to go behind Backstrom. He got Sergei Fedorov. It worked really good. We had, I mean, if it wasn't for Pittsburgh, we probably would have won a couple cups in that time. But then when I was in Minnesota, we needed a third line center, I thought, really badly, and or our fourth line, and we went and got Martin Hansel, who wasn't as good a fit, and you don't know if it's a fit until you see it, right? And so it didn't work out as well. And so, but the thing is, there was communication right there. I mean, in Minnesota, also with Paul Fenton asked us what we needed, but it went on deaf ears. But I told him what we needed if we wanted to be successful, and it's up to them to go out and either try to get it or just say in the same argument it should be, no, we don't need that. That's not good enough. Let's get something else, or let's stand still. But I think they should all be in on the conversations, and they all should be in the meetings and try to make the best thing that they think that's going to push the Leafs over the top.
Yeah, I agree too. I feel like you get a real pulse of someone's character when you're in the room every day, grinding it out. GMs have that distant relationship, right, Bruce? We've been through it. We understand that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, and I guess like just on their back end, Morgan Rielly, you know what I mean? Like, do you think this is something they need to work on? When I look at like plus minus isn't like a stat that I love to jump into, right? But Tanev's plus 18, OEL's plus 14, Jake McKay plus 13. Morgan Rielly minus 16, right? Like, do you think this is a problem or something they need to assess as they get into the playoffs and trying to think they need to grind it out, right? This is the team they want to be. Do they have a problem with Morgan Rielly?
Well, I don't know if they have a problem, but that is a problem. I mean, but we could shake it down a little bit even more. I wish that the statisticians in the league, and I really, you look at plus minus when you get the sheets every day. It's right there. I mean, front and center. But I mean, they got to discount empty net goals, because nowadays empty net goals, some goalies pull it with 8 minutes to go, and you can be on for both of them. I'd like to have all of those, empty net goals don't count for a plus or minus or a minus, and then see exactly what it is. Because I got to believe Morgan Rielly is on for every empty net goal against, and I usually that doesn't. But I digress. I do think it's a problem. He hasn't changed the way he's played, whether it was with Sheldon Keefe, whether it was, when he was drafted, fifth overall or whatever it was back then. And he hasn't adjusted to the style that Craig wants to play. So consequently, I mean, he's still up the ice, and you can look a lot of times. I mean, has to circle behind the net to get back, because he's I used to tell Mike Green all the time, I said, I want you to be the fourth man up on the play. I don't want you to be the first man up on the play. And I think Morgan Rielly is often in the first man or the second man, and he can't get back, which consequently hurts his defensive ability.
The thing saving me on Rielly is he's generally pretty good in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I hope come the springtime he gets to that level again, like he did a couple years back against Tampa. Gabby, great catching up. I mentioned earlier on, I couldn't believe the last time we spoke was in the preseason. Time flies. I hope you're well, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Absolutely, and thanks for putting that plug in me. I always love when people are plugging me for a job, because I would love a job.
Yeah,
with the Toronto Maple Leafs, right?
You work everywhere, Brucey. You work everywhere. What do you mean?
I know. No, like when you've been coaching or playing for 50 years, and Carter, you will, I guarantee, agree with this. The one thing that we miss when we're not doing it is being part of a team. And I think, when your whole life is part of a team, whether one guy succeeds or the group succeeds, that's the hardest thing about doing individual work, I think, because it's just us, and you miss being in the room. You miss being talking to the guys when they're all out. You'd miss all of that. And that's the part, whether it's a coaching staff getting together, whether it's players getting together, I think forever I'll miss that no matter what. And that's the biggest thing I will miss.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.